men, women, children, and others. My name is Aaron from Panic in the Discord. Joining me for this discussion is a fellow member and a longtime friend. Jordan, why don't you introduce yourself to the people?
Well, it's me, Jordan from Panic in the Discord. Probably don't know me that well, since I think so far I've only done one video, but we're gonna change that. All right, carry on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Jordan, we're coming off the heels of the MK11 Aftermath trailer, and we got announced of a new slew of DLC characters. I'm not entirely sure if that's all of them for the next pack, but we got confirmation of RoboCop becoming a playable character in MK11. And I feel like this is something we need to bring attention to, all right? Because regardless of whether or not you like RoboCop or if you even like these guest characters that NRS has a habit of putting into their games, we need to talk about the oversaturation of this kind of practice. Uh, I guess an appropriate way to start is what 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 is the allure of guest characters? Like what makes them appealing to you?
Hmm. Well, we all love like certain characters, and we just like to see them in different medias. Maybe, for instance, Dante from Devil May Cry. We love the hack and slash shit, but we also love fighting games. So it's just like crazy to imagine like, what if a character like this, like that does a million things, was in a fighting game? And then we
Right.
got that in Marvel 3. And it actually fit considering that's like a crossover game.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, I guess it comes from the feeling of wanting to see more of a character, wanting them to be in more things.
True. I feel that for sure. I think another thing is like some characters, like some of them might be so unconventional that there might be this feeling of, oh wow, I didn't even know I wanted this until I got it, right? Like who would have thought that we would have like recreated Aliens vs Predator and MKX? Like we
Right.
didn't know that we needed that until we got it. There's probably like there's also like another feeling where I feel like it also gives characters like it's kind of like what you said, it gives characters opportunities to be a part of different media, and stylistically you might find that it's like a match made in heaven. So I know, and we'll get into this later, but the reason why NRS loves to gravitate towards horror characters is because because they would fit in MK. Like they can be as gory as they want with it, and it could be like a spot on representation of how they are in the movies or wherever they came from. So on the surface, I think we can conclude that guest characters are a cool idea and it has been executed well. But we're talking about Netherrealm Studio specifically, and I feel like they have an issue with oversaturating their rosters with guest characters. Um, but my biggest issue is this. I guess we can kind of start getting into NRS's tendencies with throwing in guest characters. My number one issue with how NRS treats it is that they have games that are a part of franchises that are so rich in history, that have characters that have not returned in a long time, or characters who have never been in a game period, but they neglect those characters to put in whatever movie character is like popping at the time or whatever, or a character from another IP to throw them in. That's my biggest issue. Don't stop ignoring your franchise so that you can cash in on a character that might potentially rake in the sales. Because the thing about fighting games also is that a lot of people like fighting games because of the longevity, whether it's like the tournament scene or like whether you're like a net play guy, you're going to be playing as long as you need to. And for some people are going to be playing for a very, very long time. There's a reason why Smash Melee has yet to die in the tournament scene. So with Mortal Kombat and Injustice specifically, it's like you might feel inclined if you were never a fan of these games to want to play it because, oh wow, Freddy Krueger is in MK9. Now I might actually be interested in playing, or Leatherface made it into MKX. I might want to play him there. But if you weren't invested in the game, you're not gonna get anything out of the game, because your only draw to the game was the character. And it kind of plays into this thing where NRS kind of treats, and you could probably say the same thing about other fighting games, although my knowledge in that is very limited, so you can correct me on that. But I feel like nowadays fighting games are kind of moved towards a live service model where characters and stages, and now with story expansions, are gonna be coming periodically in packs that you have to individually pay for. And I gotta say, I don't appreciate that because you already pay $60 for the game at launch. They In games where like the net play is terrible, they might patch it or whatever, but that might come along the line. But then uh you got new characters coming that they reveal not even when the game comes out, but even before the game comes out, they're like, hey, we got DLC packs of characters on the way that you're gonna have to pay for. But Mortal Kombat Armageddon launched with 62 fighters. Granted, you did have to play the story to unlock most of the roster, but uh, point is, the game came out with 62 characters, and the largest that I guess we can call it like a modern NRS game in terms of like roster, even after DLC. The biggest roster that we've had was so far with Injustice 2 with 38 characters after the Ninja Turtles dropped. And that game still had 10 DLC characters, 4 of which were guest characters. So, game launched with, if I can do my math, game launched with 24 characters. Uh, Brainiac was the only one unlockable from beating the story, but uh, 10 total DLC characters had come out in that time. 4 of them being, so it was Hellboy, TMNT, uh, Raiden, and Sub Zero. Uh, that's another thing I wanted to touch upon. How do you feel about uh, Injustice and MK being like NRS's like main franchises, like swapping characters in each other's games? How do you feel about that?
It's very unnecessary, very stupid, and it was unwanted.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, we all know they're gonna keep going back and forth between Injustice and MK. Like, it's their main IPs. So I don't get the point of like having Sub Zero and Injustice 2 when we're gonna get an MK the next year. That
Right.
just doesn't sit well with me.
And the number one most disrespectful thing, it's like, and NRS gameplay wise, I mean, say what you want, but I feel like there are times where like they can really hit their strides, and they can make characters that have seemingly identical power sets, but still make them play different. Like, you gotta at least credit them for that. But uh, with Injustice 2, we already had, Captain Cold, and we had Killer Frost in the first game. NRS has handled, ice-based characters in this universe before. We didn't need another, and let alone it being from the other main franchise, like you said, that they would eventually do. And I still have not forgiven Injustice specifically, because instead of just getting Black Lightning as a playable character, he was
Oh
a
my goodness.
skin for
Oh,
Raiden. Uh, it, which which just blows my mind because the show was popping around that time. I don't remember when he came out or even when the show started, but I'm assuming that's the reason why he was even a skin to begin with. But that being said, it's the point of Black Lightning is a known DC character. It wasn't even that Black Lightning was like another character from another IP that just would have been cool to see as a skin. No, he is a real character in the universe with a real history, and he was a skin for a game from another franchise. In the game where his universe is the most disrespectful thing in my opinion. Now, I actually kind of did a tally. Going into this, I did a little bit of research because since I had mentioned Armageddon having such a huge roster at launch, uh, I want to take us back a little bit because uh, MK9, right? Uh, MK9 ended with 32 characters. It had 4 DLC total. Two two of them being guest characters. It was Freddy Krueger and it was Kratos if you had the PlayStation version. And then
Right.
Injustice 1 had 30 characters after 5 DLC, only one guest character being Scorpion, which is still ridiculous. Uh, MKX 33 characters, oh, including 9 DLC, which had 4 guest characters. Injustice 2, 38 after 10 DLC, 4 guest characters, and then MK11 started out with 25 characters, already has 9 DLC characters, including the 3 that just got announced, with a total of 4 guest characters so far. Um, Now, I know that there are people who are excited for RoboCop. I think I'm more so interested in recreating like a RoboCop versus Terminator thing, which is probably one of the reasons why NRS opted for RoboCop over anyone else. But still, I mentioned the thing like, oh, I didn't know I needed this until I got it. But seriously, be honest with me, who the fuck asked for RoboCop to be in Mortal Kombat? Or who was even asking for RoboCop to even be in a game in general? That's one of those things to me because everyone is going to be a fan of something. I understand that, but that is just one thing that I will just never accept, and I just find it impossible to believe that there were people who were actually clamoring for RoboCop to be in Mortal Kombat because I refuse to believe that's true. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. Like RoboCop, don't get me wrong, he has his fans, but like he's not that big. And either way, what the fuck is he gonna do in a fighting game?
Right.
What is he gonna do? Same thing for Terminator. Terminator doesn't throw hands; he
Uh
just
huh.
shoots you.
Right.
Wh-
Right.
what's he gonna do? I just don't get that.
And the funniest thing about Terminator was that people kept clowning his move set like when he came out because his moves just don't translate well in MK. So people would clown the shit out of like some of his janky animations and stuff, and it's like, yeah, I mean, what did you expect? Like this is not the environment for a Terminator to be in. You would want Terminator to be in a shooter first of all, like that's where he would fit best, but I even saw this thing. I don't know if you watched the aftermath clip that dropped alongside the trailer where it showed the Deadpool's.
Oh,
Uh
I saw that.
oh right, yeah. So the Tarkatan got knocked into the acid pit and then it started sinking into it and it almost did the thing like, you know, like in the Terminator movie when he's sinking into the lava pit. I
Mhm.
like it's those things where like they're trying to find ways to justify certain characters, uh but it just comes to me, it comes off as like ham-fisted, and they're just trying to find reasons to validate the inclusion of these characters. Spawn, to me, Spawn is a different story. People have wanted Spawn in MK forever, so
Right.
I'm not going to lump him into that category. And even though Spawn probably, I mean, play I don't play Spawn, but at least from what I've understand, he's not the best character, but uh it was cool for us to just finally have him in a game where he should be. Like Spawn is one of those things where like he would fit perfect in MK. Spawn in Animal Crossing and shit like that, like that. Him being a guest character in anywhere else just wouldn't fit. Like in Mortal Kombat, it's like a match made in heaven, and it absolutely fucking helps that he was voiced by Keith Davids because
Oh
he you know he
yes.
murders that shit. But I'm I'm expressing this to show that this can work, and it's happened, and it's worked other times. Darth Vader like a Soul Calibur character or
Oh yeah. Vader, Starkiller, and Yoda were all in Soul Calibur 4.
right, but that makes sense considering how the game plays, and also who wouldn't fucking want Vader in a
Right.
fighting game. Those things work. I will say the same thing about Spawn, and I will even say the same thing about Kratos and MK9. Kratos makes sense to be in Mortal Kombat, although it is stupid he was a console exclusive. But regardless, these things can work. I just don't think that NRS does it right. They put in too many. They do it in games where they have franchises that have characters that might never see the light of day again, and need to come back. Uh, Plus, they've done this thing where their games have now become live service models where I feel like it's them artificially trying to like pad the life of the game, because if the game is not popping in the tournament scene, and as far as I understand it already isn't, well, for obvious reasons, but the point is they have this thing where, oh well, you should look forward to these DLC drops because they might have characters that you really want in them. But it's like, well, uh you can't expect someone to not like the game to keep playing just because uh you're gonna drop a character that they like. I'm sure some people can do it, but the lore of fighting games is learning it and getting good at it. And I know like you and Gino and Dap like legitimately don't like the way that the game plays. So even if they had dropped a character that you were really hoping for, it's the fact that it's in a game that you don't like playing. It's really gonna deter you from wanting to play that character. I am excited for Fujin, finally being
Same.
in a modern MK game, but I don't like the game. I don't like the game that he's in. So now that it's so far gone from having experience and letting the game play out, now it's like, oh well, uh wait for the next DLC drop where you're gonna get two more guest characters that are really gonna knock your socks off. Because admittedly they do throw in very unconventional picks that I wouldn't expect. I do have to credit that because NRS is also just very good at not listening to their fans. But that's besides the point. Uh, Hellboy. I mean, I am a fan of the character, but it did catch me off guard at first to see him become a character in Injustice 2. Although I was upset that he was a guest character, I was more so glad that they still stuck within the lane of, okay, it's an Injustice game. We should at least have like comic book characters as guest characters. So I do
Right.
appreciate the effort to throw in a a character that fits better with the game and not a totally unconventional pick. And TMNT, while the trailer for their reveal still makes me mad to this day because I thought that the guy in the trench coat was John Constantine, or like Rorschach or the Question or whatever. Even still, you couldn't have guessed that the Ninja Turtles would have been in an Injustice game. So that element of surprise, it may work for some, and it did work for me at first. I didn't play the Ninja Turtles, but they did look very interesting because it was basically four different characters in one. So the way they were able to make that work was interesting. Still, it's like, I mean, were people asking for the Ninja Turtles in Injustice? Like, I understand people like the Ninja Turtles, but did who wanted them in a DC centric fighting game? You know who I wanted in Injustice? The aforementioned John Constantine. I wanted Madame Xanadu. I wanted Cassandra Cain. Uh, I wanted uh, Mr. Miracle. I So many other characters that you've probably never heard of, that haven't seen any general media presence maybe in their entire lives. Not Constantine because he had a show and does Constantine in some cartoons, but characters that we will probably never see continue to be ignored for guest characters. That is really my big take with NRS and why they have a guest character problem. They just continue to ignore uh, so many other of their characters. It's not like they don't have access to these characters. They have the licenses to use the entire sandbox that is the universe of these franchises, but they're just gonna toss them to the side for fucking RoboCop, right? Like what Taven Dagon, Onaga, Lee Mei, Motaro. What about all these characters from the 3D era that were completely ignored and shunned ever since the MK9 timeline had started? What about them? Where did they go?
Yeah, that's the big question. They have all these characters, but they just decide to use guest characters. I get it. Personally, I prefer if they just like did a guest character pack, like maybe in the end, and then just keep your main packs if you're gonna do them with characters from the actual universe.
Hmm.
Then I honestly would have no problem with it at all. But we get these packs, we don't know who's in them, and we're like, oh, cool, it's an MK game. I'm gonna get some more MK characters. Nah, you're gonna get like two guest characters. It's like
Yeah.
that's not really what I wanted, but okay, I guess.
Right. And was it you who suggested and this was like a while ago, but I think you said something about it would have been cool if like NRS did like a classic character pack of like old characters that were not in like in the previous iteration but also didn't make it to the base roster, or am I mixing it up?
That might have been someone else, but I agree with it.
Right. Cuz I you would think that characters from the previous game would just automatically be in the next one, but that's not how NRS rolls, baby. We're gonna make, we're gonna throw some of those characters to the side for very contrived story reasons. So we're gonna hope that you just completely ignore them because we just didn't feel like bringing them back. But we're gonna add in a lot of these new characters uh, that that no one is interested in, plus guest characters, plus DLC characters of other characters that were not in the previous installment. Uh, but you know damn well they won't return for the next one. So I don't know why they do that. I mean, I'm not a game dev, so I don't know how hard it is, but I feel like you could just port all of these characters to the next installment, just make it look better, change up some of their moves. Like I'm probably making it sound a lot more simpler than it is, but I just can't help but think it should because you already made the character, you made their models, and you made their move sets. What's the issue with porting them to the next iteration? I mean, MKX, it was like in the beginning, one of like the cutscenes literally showed like the Revenant army of like most of the characters that had become Revenants in MK9, and they were all not playable. It's so their models were in the game, they were in the cutscenes, but you couldn't play them. Uh, that to me is a tragedy because NRS already has like games that started off with small-ish rosters, um, but they really padded on with DLC. Injustice 2 had 10 DLC characters for Christ's sakes. So it's like with every game, their starting roster just keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking, but their DLC count is just gonna keep getting bigger. Uh,
Right.
I I gotta say, I really don't appreciate this model. It's like you're really trying to milk these people dry, by making them pay for every pack or for each individual character. Uh, I don't I don't like this. I don't like this practice. It feeds into the problem with every other game that does live service, which is that you had already paid full price for the original game. Uh, and they more often than not they had already advertised this new content either before or during the game's launch. So, uh, in terms of like day one DLC, I mean, pre-order bonuses I guess are, very generally you can kind of lump them into the same category, um but they've also been doing that for a long time, so I don't even know if I want to like lump it into that category, but I guess technically it is. So when you have day one DLC basically with all these pre-order characters, It's like you had already made the character and you could have just thrown him into the game by default, but you wanted to make him day one DLC. Why? Well, easy money, I guess. Uh, they did that. What they did that with Darkseid in Injustice 2. Uh, was there a pre-order character for MK? Any of the MKs?
Uh, MKX was Goro.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I forgot.
I forget what MK11 got. Yeah, I think MK11 was just gear that you got if you pre-ordered.
Oh, was it? Oh, well, that's kind of ass actually. Um.
Oh, you got Shao Kahn. That's right.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah.
And even worse off is that Shao Kahn was in the story and you actually did fight him. So he could have just been in the game to start, but no. If you is day one DLC. Aftermath, I don't know if I understood the trailer correctly, so it's taking place right after, I guess, the canon ending of MK11, even though Liu Kang already rebooted the timeline. So I don't know how Shang Tsung and Baraka still exist. Uh, yeah, I don't know.
I
I'm
don't.
not. I'm not gonna try to make sense of it.
Time
Anyways,
travel.
yeah, time travel. The very simple explanation for everything. So Shang Tsung was in the game in spirit through his island, and the new, the new island that he was taking up residence on. But you didn't actually fight him. He became DLC later on. Well, guess what? Now he's in the story, and a story expansion to be fair. But uh, it just makes me wonder. It's like, no, you had already made plans to include this character from the beginning because his presence was known in the original story, but you got lazy, had finally made the character, and now you can finally put him into a meaningful role in the story, which you still have to pay for. Uh, why? Uh, it's really going to suck if MK11 finds some ways to make like their guest characters canon into the story. Like if I fucking see Terminator or RoboCop in the Aftermath story, I'm gonna fucking blow my brains out. Uh, that
Oh man.
they better not pull some shit like that. Cause you know the in all we need is like the intro dialogues, like cause that to me it's fun because they record a lot of lines for it, and a lot of the times I'm pretty sure it's not canon. So that we only need references in those, and that's it. Leave them out of the story. I don't want them utilized, but essentially it just kind of what this really all boils down to is that NRS specifically, they they do it too much. They do it in games that don't need it because they continue to reject and ignore those franchises with characters that would probably never be in a game. That's my uh closing argument. I don't know if you got anything to add to that, or if you got something else to say, but why don't you go ahead and close it out for us?
Oh damn, you really put me on the spot. um, all in all, I guess it's not entirely wrong for them to be doing these guest characters, but the way they're going about it, it's just really bad. They need to focus on actually making a complete product before they even think about releasing another game. Their rosters at this point should be huge on on launch. If you want guest characters, go ahead and do it, but put them in their own pack. People will buy it still.
Mm-hmm.
But just show some respect to your IPs. People love MK. There's so many characters. The universe is huge. Same for DC. They're just I don't know. They're just disappointing.
Right.
That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much it for me though.
See now, are there any guest characters that you would like in Injustice or MK?
Uh, Not really. Unless it's well, actually, I think it'd be really funny to have Ghostface in like a Mortal Kombat game.
True, true.
I mean, they put in mocap, so anything's possible.
Hey, yeah, I mean, um, I that also I feel like that's also a good like illustration of, an earlier point where it's like, because personally I don't see myself wanting any guest characters in these games, but it's like I said before, sometimes it's the element of surprise that can really get people. So even though you weren't asking for it, maybe you didn't even know that you wanted it until it happened. So
Yeah.
maybe that'll happen with me, uh, with whatever new character is gonna be in this game or the next one. But I really don't see it happening because NRS is just going about it the wrong way. That is all we have to say about it. Uh, Let us know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's have a civilized discussion. Is NRS overdoing it with these guest characters, or are they going about it the right way? Talk about it. Follow all of our social media. The handles are in the description below. Jordan, if you got anything to plug, upcoming projects or anything of the like, what you doing in the world?
Jack shit, because your boy is quarantined.
Dead ass. Okay.
Yep.
Uh, I've got I've got a couple of reviews